Hey everybody, it's Chris with the 7-Minute Fix, and we're back with the new series, Photoshop Basics. Today we're starting with tools. Now the Move tool is obviously the first tool that we use. It's pretty easy. Next we're going to use the Selection tool. With the Selection tool you select the thing that you're looking for, and we have many options that we can use here. In this case you can also drag it around, do whatever you want with it. And if we can then right click it and we can layer via copy or layer via crop. If we do layer via copy, it's going to make just the same layer of just that selection on top of the layer you already have. Layer via cut is going to actually take that completely out and make it two different separate images. You can feather, we can do inverse, which is going to select everything else. It's pretty simple. There's 4 different types of selections. They're pretty self-explanatory. Next we have the lasso tool. With this you can lasso, which is freehand. You can do it with just the lines, which is just going to be following whatever you need. It's pretty much like tracing. And then thirdly there is magnetic. Magnetic is going to be something that sticks to the lines that it finds around it. In normal blocky images it'll work a lot better. In something like this with the busy corn in the background, it makes it a lot more difficult to use. Next up we've got the Quick Selection and Magic Wand tool. The Quick Selection tool is pretty much you drag the mouse where you want with things you want to select, and it finds those and guesses at what you're trying to do. The Magic Wand tool, you click, it guesses even better. You don't have to drag, and it's going to be a lot more detailed. Next up, we also have the Crop tool, which is pretty self-explanatory, and then we have the Splice tool. We'll need to go into more details later on what the Splice tool does, but simply think of taking one image and splicing it into multiple different images by just saving it one time. Next up are our measuring tools. We start with the eyedropper. You drag and you find the color you like. When you let go, it chooses that color in your color selector. You also have the eyedropper that's going to select multiple colors. You can do up to 4, and it keeps the RGB numbers for you so that you can use that every time. We've got the ruler that will tell you exactly how long or tall an image is or something you're wanting to measure. And we also have the note bar, of course, that lets you make notes on whatever part of the image you want. Next up, we're going to take this image of a church, we're going to crop it using some of the tools we've already talked about, and now we're going to show you an even better tool, which is the self-healing tool. Watch as all you do is drag the mouse over this light pole that we don't like, and it automatically finds out what it thinks should be there, and it replaces it with grass, sky, clouds, rocks, whatever need be. This tool is very, very simple to use. You just have to learn the tricks of how it works. Sometimes it doesn't understand what you're wanting it to do, and so you have to drag from further out to make it work the right way. With the rocks and the grass inside that, it learns really quickly you want to make it all gravel. Sometimes though, clouds don't work the best, and so there'll still be a slight haze there. You can also do this manually by Alt or Option clicking on a certain place in the picture and then dragging on what you want. It melds it together in a weird kind of way. There also is a patch option. Doesn't work very well in my opinion. Then we have red eye. We don't really have a picture that has red eyes, but you can see what it does is it tries to take the red out of the picture by making it black, in this case the tractor and my son's head. Next up we've got the paintbrush tools and all the tools that go with it. It's pretty simple. You've got a brush and you can change the types that you have. It looks different on the outside. All kinds of different options here. We'll have to go into that in a later date. Next up, of course, there's a pencil, even easier to understand. There's also the color replacement tool. While it doesn't look as cool here, even though you can see that the sky is obviously changing, if we go over to this other layer that I created with a t-shirt, you can see that it will replace the white and keep the shadows and the gradients that are already there on the shirt, and replaces it with a reddish hue. We also have the clone stamp tool, which in this case when you Option or Alt click, you can see that now what you're doing is actually exactly replacing that portion of the picture in a different place now. In this instance it doesn't work very well, however it can work well in grass and in sky. There's also of course the patch tool there. This is the art history brush. I personally don't know what it's for. I want to learn someday. Right now it just kind of looks weird, just thought I'd play with it. This is the eraser tool. It's pretty self-explanatory, as well as we have the background eraser tool, which kind of guesses what you want to take away, and the magic background eraser tool. Next up, we're going to take away some more of the sky so that I can cut this out, because I want to show off the paint bucket tool and the gradient tool. These two are some of my favorite tools, especially the gradient tool. The more that you learn to use the gradient tool, the better. And I think this is a really great example of it. As you can see what the sky looks like now, but what we're going to do is we're going to I'm going to cut around it with the quick selection tool, and then we're going to replace it with a color. That's not the best though, so I do like using a gradient instead. So I'm going to manipulate this a little bit using a circular motion, and then finding the best color, and when I get it to the right place, it looks great. Next up are more of my favorites. This is the blur tool. We can blur exactly only the certain parts that we want to use, and then we can turn around, and if we want to make my sun pop out and maybe even the tractor pop out, we can then use the sharpen tool, which is going to give it a completely different character and kind of a graphic texture to it as well. Along with that is the smudge tool. With this, if we wanted to use a text at the very top of this image and we felt the corn was too much in the way, then we can use that smudge tool. It's not the best look, but at the same time, it still kind of works. Next up, we're going to use the dodge tool. The dodge tool really is going to brighten your image up in certain places, and then we've got the burn tool, which is going to darken that back up. And then after that, we have the sponge tool, which really just kind of takes color out of the image that it has. It works really well in some instances, and you'll see this as an Instagram effect pretty much on a lot of people's photos. Now this is the pen tool. It's a very difficult to figure out part of the tools, and we're not really going to cover it much, but I did want to show it off. Of course, there's also text inside of Photoshop, and there's so many different features with this. This is another one we'll have to cover at a later date, but we did want to show off some of the things that you can do with this by replacing and adding text in just random spots all over your image. Next up, we've got all the different shapes: rectangle, rounded rectangle, ellipse, polygon, line, and custom shape. These are really great and fun to use, and they're pretty self-explanatory. You definitely don't want to miss out on using these. We've got some other great features here on 3D objects and the hand, rotating, and zoom. They're not much to cover. Thanks for checking out this first episode in our new series. Check us out in a couple weeks to cover filters and effects. Thanks for watching, and please subscribe.